Oh, okay. Got it. All right. So, hi, Theodora. We are doing a fun interview today, learning about Theodora's work and everything that she does. She's an amazing artist in Richmond, Virginia, and she creates these beautiful gramata paintings that are inspired by ancient Greek letters and the seven wishes, which we'll talk about. And Theodora is going to tell us all about her work, her journey as an artist, and what our show is going to be because we are creating a group exhibition in March. So we'll talk all about that, and we're actually going to select pieces for the show together in this live little chat. So welcome, and thank you, Theodora, for
Awesome.
being here. And we're just going to jump right into it. So, first question. I want to know your very first childhood memory of like any experience that was creative or artistic, like as a child, like something that might have happened in an art class or at home or something that like kind
Yeah,
of like inspired you in your childhood. So go ahead.
yeah, great. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. The second best thing than making art is talking about art. And I do consider myself a child artist. I definitely was the kid that was always doodling, always drawing. Um, you know, and the margins of my notebook on the sidelines of books. It just was my happy dreaming kind of thing. And I remember being very, very active with it. I would make books of poems for my mother for Mother's Day, and I came across them cleaning out our basement before the holidays, and every page was made like from wallpaper samples and taped together, and it would have a poem and a drawing to coincide. And I think that was like in third grade. And then I also remember in fifth grade, the PTA was having a fundraiser, a pizza fundraiser, and they had a fundraiser poster contest for the kids. And I really wanted to enter it. And there were other kids in my class that I thought were much better artists than me. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I drew this funky night. I mean, it was 1970s, right?
Uh-huh.
So it had like my version of a pizza tavern, like the really old Pizza Huts
I love
with
it.
the, Coca-Cola, lanterns and the Italian, chef and all of that. But the funny thing is that I wrote the wrong time. How you have to have the date and the time of the event. And I
Okay.
did, and I did the wrong one. And I realized it late, late that evening. And I didn't have time to start over. And I was gutted. But I just said, well, we're just going to make that lantern bigger. We're going to make that lantern in this pizza house scene bigger. And it was a little messier than I wanted it to be, but I ended up winning. And it was like this huge, huge confidence boost for me that
Mhm.
I made a mistake and I could have torn it up. I could have not submitted it. But I took a chance on myself and I made, an edit, and I sent it in anyway, thinking there's no way I'm going to win, but I did. And that was just like this big lesson for me, that I was like, you know what? I'm going to make mistakes. I'm not going to be the smartest kid in the room. I'm not going to be the best artist in the room, but you just got to put yourself out there and keep trying.
Yeah.
And I just remember that really, really well. There's even a photograph. I'll have to find it, right? There's literally a photograph um, of me sitting on the ground with my big poster with the other kids that had,
Oh
were
my
runners
gosh.
up or whatever. And the smile on my face is undeniable. Just the happy disbelief of
Right.
attaining that goal.
I know.
Uh,
And as a kid too, like it like as a child, it gets ingrained into like your body and your subconscious,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
like you remember that moment of like validation and like that like feeling of excitement. It's like it sticks with you and it gives you the confidence to continue. As a kid too, I remember when I was a kid in art class and my art teacher held up my piece of art in front of the whole class and was like, look at what she did, because I thought I made a mistake and I wasn't following the directions and I made my sunflower too big. And she was like, look. And I still remember that like from my childhood. And so for you too, it's like these memories that like are so kind of like, kind of seemingly like not important are like super important. And it kind of trickles down and it plays into our adult life as
yeah,
artists. And it like
sure.
brought us to where we are today because it's like that first kind of validation,
Right. The
that
crazy thing is though, it was always something that I enjoyed. It was something I was good at. It was something my mother bragged about. But it was just kind of my happy thing. There was never a point where I was like, I'm going to be an artist one day.
right.
Um, I did not have any role models. I am the first person in my family to go to college. My mother immigrated from Greece. So being a first generation Greek American, she really pushed education, education, education. So I continued art. I always had, always took the class,
Mhm.
enjoyed it so much, but it was just something that I did that made me personally happy. But I went to college, got a scholarship, I left home, and I never took another art class. Like to this day, I'm like, how did I just completely just go down this whole
Art.
other path,
Right.
and just pivoted and didn't continue to make it be a part of my life, even in just that kind of hobby, way.
Right,
Um,
right.
it
So
was
wait, before
crazy.
we keep going with this story, because I think
Yeah.
it's gonna get cooler. But I want to ask you, your
Mhm.
mother and your grandmother, even though they weren't educated, they were immigrants from Greece. And I want to ask you, like, was there anything that they did specifically as women in your life and as role models, or even like an aunt or anyone in your family? Like, did they do anything creative? Maybe even cooking or like any creative
Well,
act?
yeah.
Like inspire you as a child, like just watching them in any way?
Well, I didn't grow up with my grandmother. Unfortunately, she was very ill. My mother's the youngest of five, and my grandmother in Greece was very ill. So I didn't really have a relationship with her. But I did have a relationship with my aunts in Greece, one particular aunt, Theodora. But the one thing that my mother, I think, brought with her was just this respect for herself. Like, she always dressed up and took care of herself. And it was for her own self-confidence. I remember she would always be just this elegant woman. She loved, you know, creating her house was her canvas. You know,
Okay, like
she,
her outlet,
she
like
yeah,
decorating.
it was her outlet. Like, she loved beautiful things, and she took the time to create an environment that gave her joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so she created a very beautiful home. She took the time when she got up in the morning to, she worked with my father when we were in school. And she always took the time to take care of herself and look good. And I just think that and people notice. Like,
Yeah.
I remember the other Greek fathers would say to their wives, "Get to see the Buddhist, the dimastis antisula, kita tisula tiore."
Oh, drama,
I
church.
remember that. It was so funny. I remember that. But she just had an elegance about her, and she had a self-respect, that she did it for herself. She felt better. I remember her telling me, that
Yeah.
she felt better to get dressed for the day and everything. And I just remember being a young professional and, starting I did 30 years, 30 years of, 16 in financial services and
Mhm.
banking and all kinds of roles there, leadership roles there. And then 14 years in marketing and communications for a private school. And, there was something about, oh, I'm a
And the
professional.
orchids. Your mother like
Oh,
loved
yeah.
orchids.
Yeah.
And that I know that she passed away and that you remember her and her beauty. So do you mind telling us the story,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Sure.
the memory and how you bring it to everyone's life and through beauty and your art?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. She had a very serious chronic lung disease, and it really robbed her of her good health and a longer life. But again, yeah, just the fact that she would have orchids and flowers in her home because they brought beauty to her, right? She designed the life that she wanted to live. She loved orchids so much. She would
Oh,
have them hanging in her lanai. I grew up in Florida. So she
okay.
would have them hanging outside, like in the pool, the
Mhm.
caged pool area. She would have them hanging in the front yard in oak trees. And then she would bring them into the house at different times. They rebloomed for her all the time.
That is
I,
awesome.
on the other hand, would run, like if I'm going to have a party at my house or something, I would run and I would buy, an orchid from the grocery store that's already blooming, right? And then they would die, and I would just stick them on a table or whatever, and they would never rebloom for me. But I would have them around the house with the green leaves, but they would never, ever, ever rebloom. And after she
Orchids are
passed,
tricky. Orchids are tricky because I love orchids and so does my mom and
yeah,
we and my mother-in-law and we have to put them by a sunny window and like you have to talk to them and like
yeah,
water them.
oh,
Like
totally, totally.
they're definitely like pets.
Well, my mother died January 30th, 2016, and I was so close to her. And it just, to this day, it's
I
hard. We're coming up on the
yeah,
30th, so I'm a little
no,
bit more emotional just thinking back to this
no,
and
thank
that
you
and
for
that
talking
time.
to us so openly about this experience because
Yeah.
honestly, like so many people genuinely feel exactly this grief and this processing. A lot of my students, I talk to that they are a loved one that, they're processing this grief. And I personally haven't experienced a death like close to me yet in my life, but I do know others that have. And it's like art is healing, it's therapeutic. It helps you connect deeper with the person, it helps you process, it helps you understand, it brings you closer to God because prayer, it's like when you're painting, it's like a form of prayer and communication and like talking to God and like talking to the person's soul. And like you feel like when you're in that state of creation, you're like kind of speaking to them in a way. And it's a form of processing and it's positive and it's transformative too because you're taking this sadness that you're holding on to and you're alchemizing it into this beautiful work of art that you can share with others around the world, that others can appreciate the beauty of it and like see, you know, the grand like love that you had in your heart for her and like her memory lives on now forever through your work and through your testimonies for her. And I think that that's just like so extremely beautiful. And I
Well, it was a journey. It was a long journey. I spent that first year really consumed by grief, and I had a neighbor, or I still have the neighbor, but across the street, two gentlemen, and they both had lost their mothers. So I think once you go through it, you know. And they would tell me, they were like, Theodora, we see you. You get out of your car when you get home from work and you are just walking with your head down and you're just so consumed by grief. And I just want to tell you, you need to start looking up. And
oh
I was like, She's going to send you signs. And if you are so busy looking at the ground, you're going to miss all the signs that she's sending you.
Yeah.
And I heard it, but it didn't,
Right.
it didn't change my behavior. Okay. But on that 1 year anniversary of her passing, I'm in the kitchen. I had moved all these orchids, for the holidays into the back kitchen. And I just put them all there because we had made space for a Christmas tree. And I just never put them back, spreading them around the house. And that morning, I'm having breakfast. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I notice there's one blossom that has opened. And it was hot pink, which was my mother's favorite color. And I was like, oh my God, it was like, this
Yeah.
was the sign they were talking about.
Oh, I just got chills.
Made me so happy. It was like the first time I felt this exhalation, and then it made me so happy that I, of course, called all my besties and cousins, and you're not going to believe this, and my brother and everything, and they're like,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
she's saying hello, she's letting you know she's okay. And I spent the next month coming home from work, after the kids are fed and everything. And I would sit in my dining room. The dining room table was totally taken over by paints. And I just started painting orchids.
I love it.
And then, would use these paint chips from my palette papers to add all these kind of abstracted details and texture and organic shapes. And it just made me so happy. It was like I was spending time with her again for that whole month. And the more time I spent doing it, right, it was like, okay, I think she's telling me that it's time to say goodbye to the grief, and it's time to start living again. Flowers go dormant, seasons, winter comes, but spring comes back and the flowers rebloom.
Mhm.
And, isn't that what life's about? We're all going to go through something. We're all going to lose somebody we love. We're all going to go through divorces and car accidents and, fires and losing a job and
Mhm.
having a bad breakup. We're going to have seasons of good things happening to us, and we're going to have seasons of bad things happening to us. But
Mhm.
we have to have courage that that season of reblooming is going to come back. And so the Blooming Girls, that's where the concept came through. And then I decided to start sharing it with others as, they're little reminders that we all need to keep blooming in every season of life.
Yeah, I love
And
that. I love that
and
philosophy.
I've been creating Blooming Girls ever since, in different forms and they've expanded in different ways. But the message, the message that I get to myself when
Mhm.
I'm creating them is the same message that I think is worth sharing with others.
Oh, I'm sure. And people resonate deeply with the beauty and the blooming and the new cycles of life. And I read this quote recently too, like a beautiful, sexy life still has, trials and tribulations. And it's so true. Like your life can be full of beauty and be beautiful and sexy and gorgeous and just like a life that you truly love. But it also comes with the hardships, and that's what forms us. Like we
Yeah,
wouldn't be the humans that we are if we didn't have these challenges that we work through. And so
right.
the challenges actually create us and mold us into the individuals that we are today. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really beautiful.
I mean, isn't that the human experience? I mean, you I think once you experience sorrow,
Mhm.
then when you experience the joy is that much deeper and
Yes,
stronger because
yes.
you felt the harder part.
Right, right. And you can appreciate it at a deeper level. And you just
Mhm,
have this like deeper
mhm,
sense of gratitude and strength and
mhm.
faith and hope that, even, and now you kind of know, even next time when you do hit another low point, it's like you've seen evidence in the past that it gets better. And so
Yeah,
when you do get another dip in life, it's like you have that evidence that, and that faith that you're
right.
going to get to this better place. And speaking of, I kind of want to like circle back into your story. So you said
Yeah,
you went to college and you never took an art class and you were completely off that path. And so I'm just personally so interested in this journey, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners too would want to know more about
yeah,
like what that's like, because I talk to so many people and they all say to me like, I'm a nurse, like I used to love drawing and painting as a child, but now I'm on this totally different path. It feels so like I feel like a fraud, or I don't feel like an artist, and it's just like this identity thing that they can't, it's like a block that people feel that since they've done this one thing that they define themselves, as that thing, and they don't feel the courage or the confidence or or they don't have that like ordination, I guess. I don't know how else to put it, of like the artist. It's like
right.
I'm just curious to hear like your story and like how you kind of like wove it back into your life and then made a career out of it, which is so cool.
Well, you just kind of get into this rat race, right? Working long hours, putting all your energy into, climbing the corporate ladder, raising children.
Mhm.
And, I had different things in my life happen. When I had two very, very young children, I went through a difficult divorce. And then suddenly I'm, a single parent for years and years. And, you just trying to survive.
Mhm.
Um, and then I got remarried and had another child and, continued to grow professionally. And, it just, I don't know, there came a point in my 40s where I was like, yeah, I got the titles, I've got the promotions, I've got a nice paycheck, but why do I not feel more fulfilled? Why, it always felt like there was something else out there. And I ended up having kind of my own little midlife crisis, and that I wanted to do something that was a little more creative, but it still wasn't yet art. It
Mhm.
just was, how could I be more creative? And I was a chief of staff and I was in charge of a program management office. So in charge of like the suite of initiatives at the corporation and stuff. Got into communications as my chief of staff role and all that. But I ended up starting to look at private schools for my kids, because I was like, okay, if I'm working this hard and these many long hours, I need a village to kind of help them reach their potential. So I started looking at private schools, and in the course of doing that, I came across a position that they were having, and it was director of marketing and communications. And I loved the school, and I loved the tour, and I loved meeting with the people. But then I would go to their website and I would get their literature and their pamphlets and everything. I was like, this doesn't match
Mhm.
any of the ethos of it. Anyway, I got a bee in my bonnet and I was like, I can help them. I can use my business acumen. I can use my creativity skills, my communication skills, and put it to good use there. And at the same time, I was able to get my children to go to those schools. And so I made that next career change, that pivot, which I was in for 14 years.
Mhm.
And it really afforded me that the whole storytelling component, the following your potential, you
Creative,
know,
like the right.
yeah, it really fed my soul in that respect, right? Because we're trying to convince parents how to invest in their children every year by sending them, instead of buying a new, basically it's like you're buying a new car every year by paying the tuition to send your kids to a private school. And how are we going to convince them that that's a good investment, right?
Right.
Well, we're helping them become their best selves. And I don't know, somewhere in there, and my own psyche, it starts wearing on you. Well, what did I want to be when I wanted to grow up? And what are the
Great.
things that make me happy? And, it kind of, I think subconsciously was just there, right? Eating at me.
Oh, that's
And
interesting. Oh, I love that.
yeah, yeah. and of course I got to partner on projects, neat innovation projects, and partner with the art team and all of that. And you start to say, hey, you know what, when I was a kid I used to like to do this. And next thing you know, the director of the art department is having a workshop at the local museum. And so I took that one weekend or whatever, and it just started slowly getting to a
The
point
seed
where
was getting planted.
just some seeds being planted. But it really wasn't until I suffered one of those big misfortunes. I fell down the stairs in 2014 moving furniture, and I hit my head. I broke my tailbone, and I ended up having a traumatic brain injury,
Wow.
and life completely halted for me.
Wow.
I had trouble speaking.
Hmm.
Um, it affected my vestibular system, so balance,
Hmm.
um, sensitivity to light, to sound. I couldn't read. I
Hmm.
couldn't be on any devices. Um, my cognitive processing was at this warp slow speed.
Hmm.
I was like Sleeping Beauty. I mean, that, any kind of stimulation would take me down, and I would just not pass out, but just like my brain would just shut down and I would
Hmm.
sleep.
Wow.
And I was out of work for months and months, and I had to go and to all kinds of, I went to a concussion clinic. Thankfully, we have a wonderful um, medical organization here called Sheltering Arms, and I was going to therapy there several times a week. Couldn't drive. We hired one of my sorority sisters that lives in town to pick me up every day because my husband commuted an hour and 15 minutes away one way, so he couldn't do it. And lots of friends taking my kids to school and bringing them home, and I had to relearn so many things.
Hmm.
And it was depressing because it was like it was almost, I felt like I was a stroke victim, and that I I knew what I was capable of doing,
Hmm.
and I knew that I could no longer do those things.
Right. And
So
your body wasn't processing what your subconscious knew, but like you
yeah, I
I,
just felt trapped. I was like trapped
mhm.
and frustrated and
And
angry
kind of like a
and
child again, like almost like an
bored,
infant.
and just and the thing is that when when your brain gets kind of shook up and all those neurons break away, it affects everything. It affects your emotions, how you're handling your emotions. It affects your hormones. My menstruation cycles were completely out of whack. I mean, it wreaked havoc.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I was ever coming back. My family didn't know if I was ever going to get better. There's just, the brain heals, but it takes so long. It's such a slow process.
Yeah.
And my doctors, I would go for all kinds of therapies. I would have this physical therapy where I would have to learn how to walk and look. And I had to do all these eye movement.
Mhm.
There was just all this kind of training, but then there was also a medical psychologist, and there was all this, cognitive training and tests and all these things that I was undergoing. And they would tell me, well, we need you to have cognitive rest, and we need you to engage in cognitive activities. And it's like all this talk where I'm like, I have no idea what you mean.
Right. Well, I know where this is going because art and creating things, it actually makes new neurotransmitters in your brain, and it reconnects parts of your brain so that you can, start making those connections again, and it helps rebuild the brain by
It totally did. I am
right.
convinced to this day that it healed me,
Yeah.
because there was so much I couldn't do. And
Mhm.
for the first time in my life, I was simply creating just to express my emotions, just to
Right.
get out the emotions. And so when you look at that early work,
Mm-hmm.
it is traumatic. It is the ugliest, darkest colors with flecks of red, and it is, and there, and I am scraping into it, like whatever my mood was at that moment for that very short amount of time that I had energy and brain power to work with. I would just go there and splatter and scrape, and then I'd have to go lay down for several hours, because I had debilitating headaches and nausea and all of that. But then I'd come back the next day
Right.
and I could do it a little bit longer, and I'd come back the next day and I could do it a little bit longer, and then come back the next day and I would look at this ugly surface and I would just put more stuff on top of it, and it would just slowly, 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 I started to have a more calmer feeling. Like I'd come to it anxious and I would leave calmer.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, the more I did it, the better I felt. The
Mm-hmm.
more I did it, the more hopeful I got. I would look at it and I'd be like, oh, well, why don't I add a little something here? Or why don't I do this? And it was
Yeah.
like every day it was building and building and building. And it was like all of a sudden there were these new pathways and these new possibilities that I was seeing, and these colors and these shapes that meant nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it did something to me physiologically
Right.
and emotionally and spiritually that gave me hope.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
I eventually, went back to work, but it was like 2 hours twice a day. It was for very, very small amounts of time. And I'd come home and I would feel so still inadequate, right? People were talking so fast, or if too many people would interrupt each other, I would lose my train of thought. I would have trouble getting my words
Yeah.
out. I mean, it was
Oh, so
really a
relating.
long, long process.
Mm-hmm.
And I would come home because I would be frustrated that I wasn't good enough,
Mm-hmm.
that I was still imperfect and flawed.
Right. And I'm sure you kind of felt like a child, like kind of relearning things too at the same time. Like you were just like relearning and like reprogramming. And it is this sense of like frustration and like that low point again, like we talked about. It's like kind of like every day you're like slowly inching yourself out of that hole, out of that
Right.
cave. And it's like the art was that tool. It's like the art is more than just like this pretty thing. It's like this lifestyle tool. And that's why I so deeply believe that art is so important for everyone, no matter what your career path is, to participate in and to make, is because it's not just about the final piece of art hanging on your walls, the beautiful works behind you, the beautiful works behind me. Like, yes, like that's cool and great. But the reason why we do this, and the reason why everyone should participate in some capacity, like creating, is because it is a psychological like tool to help us like throughout our lives to stay calm, to stay happy, to stay relaxed, to stay at peace, to bring our souls this nourishment. And it's like something that everyone can use in their life, you
Yeah.
to create that feeling of joy and that feeling of spiritual like liberation and freedom, and that's what our show is going to be about, and that's what we're going to be exhibiting together, all these women artists, from around the country. We're all going to get into one room together and we're going to express and share our lived experiences from our life and how we are creating this sense of spiritual freedom in our lives through our creative process, through our art, and sharing it with, collectors to have in their home to bring them inspiration and bring them light. So I know we're kind of like running a little, we have like a few minutes. I don't want to keep you too long, Theodora. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
no worries. No worries.
but let's start to talk about our show and like what
Yeah.
works of art we've talked about. the orchids, we've kind of mentioned the gramata paintings. Did those
Mhm.
kind of emerge like after this brain injury? Did they like kind of emerge?
All of it did. All of it did.
All of
So
it did. All of
yeah,
it.
so
Or like half.
my mother ended up passing away a year after my you know, and the first full year of me recovering from my brain injury, her
Mhm.
health started to decline. And then so every time, like I kept having all these things and the art was always there for me.
It was the
And
stabilizer.
it would pick me up out of these, you know, out of these moments. And so I just kept doing it. I would just on nights and weekends, I would do it for me, and it just kind of grew organically. And then I started just kind of posting what I was doing, and people would, you know, it would resonate with people. And I just, it made me so happy that I just couldn't stop doing it. And it just kind of grew. And then all of a sudden, you know, I, you know, formed an LLC and did research on how to start, you know, so I don't know how to collect taxes and charge people and all that. And it just grew. So for 7 years, it grew organically as just a side hustle. Um, and um, and now I've started my third year full time and moved into a new studio last spring,
Wow.
um, which I'm in right now. And
Beautiful.
so, yeah, it's become, you know, the art of living, you know, that it's just completely changed the trajectory of my life. But, you know, it will always come from a place where it I do it because I need to. It makes me a better person. It fulfills me in ways that I need, because of those benefits, those psychological benefits. And there's all kinds of books that have now come out just even in the last year or two. I didn't know it 10 years ago,
I know
you know,
your brain on art, like that book is cool.
yeah.
Like so many books.
So
And
many, but because there's so many advancements in understanding how the brain works and everything. So for me, this call, right? This call for this art show it just aligns beautifully with my journey. And what I hope is to also my art to always be something beautiful and joyful and positive. That there will always be a meaning behind it, um, and hopefully inspires other people to design the lives that they want to live. Not everybody's going to be an artist, but
Mhm.
you know, creativity it is in the way that you figure out if there's traffic and okay, how am I going to solve this problem and take a different route? You
Mhm.
know, how am I going to create a beautiful, you know, birthday party for my friend? Or, you know, there's so many ways that creativity can fit into everyday lives. And so I hope to my art kind of inspires people to kind of design the lives that they want to live and have beautiful art in their midst that reminds them, right? And so
Yes.
I can't come to Chicago and not bring something related to my seven wishes, because the whole point of that art was for me to put out into the world the blessings and the affirmations that I want to be and people's homes and in the spaces that they adore. And
Yes. And I
so
love how you mix together like our ancient, Greek language, and the language is there's such a long history with the Greek alphabet and like the language of Greek. And like I studied Greek and I love the language, and it's not an easy language to learn. And the way
right.
that you've incorporated like the history of these letters, that are so deeply spiritual letters too, like Greek was like the anointed language, so it's like this special, beautiful language, and the words are so rich and they don't really quite translate to English because they're so meaningful and deep, and they have like longer meanings, like we say love, but agape is so much more than just like the word love. It's like this unconditional, like spiritual connection, like emotional, like there's so much charge to the word agape that you can't really just translate it to just love, for example, and irini. and Elpida and all the words, the seven wishes of hope that you create in these pieces. It's like it by using the Greek word, you're actually like adding this like layers of like depth and history and just like more emotion, behind the pieces. So I love that you take your Greek culture, your heritage, this historic language, and you're weaving it into this like beautiful modern day series of like affirmation words that bring positivity into our lives, into our home. It makes our spaces more beautiful. It brings us hope and peace. And
And they're universal themes. Like you
yes,
don't have to be Greek. I do it because that meditative painting slows me down,
mhm,
and I'm memorizing them and tameletao.
yes,
I
yes,
recite each word in my mind as I'm doing it. I always listen to
yeah.
instrumental music when I'm doing it. I like get in the zone.
Right. And it's like a
And
form of prayer
it
too.
is.
Meditation.
It's my form of meditation.
Yes, it's
Um,
and your mind is thinking of the word as
exactly,
you're putting it
exactly.
down. It's like peace, and then you're like creating this feeling inside of you of peace, and then the word, I love that, and it's getting
And I came up with the word seven. Well, I at first when I started doing the meditative painting, my mother was the type of woman that, anytime I'd call to complain about something, something in my life or whatever, she would go, "But I can with exeris, da, 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 da," and she would give some Greek, she would always have a Greek proverb that would apply to my personal, complaining session. And so once she passed away,
a
I didn't have
therapist.
that. I didn't have that anymore. So I would research philosophers and novelists, and I would memorize it when something would resonate with me. I would memorize them and I would paint those. But then as time went by, I was like, well, what do I have to say? Why am I spreading the words of ancient men, right? I mean, like modern day, what do I need as a woman? What do I want to put into the world? And so when I discovered that seven is a number that conveys good luck and
Hmm.
positivity in almost every culture, religion, country in the world. It's like
Yeah,
it is like this universal number of good. I just knew that it had to be seven. And then I
yeah.
started brainstorming, but words, but not only that, but there had to be some kind of rhythmic, um, just even the
Flow.
visual imagery of the words and in what order to kind of convey this kind of abstracted beauty within them.
Oh, so you think of like the spacing of the letters and how many letters are in each word and like which one goes where, and you think about that
And
strategic.
just when they're going over and over, and so then I started thinking back to like when you go to the ruins in Greece,
Uh-huh.
they were all capital letters and there were no spaces ever, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why I do lowercase, because they have this beautiful painterly,
Oh,
flow to them, instead of this harshness, right, of the capitals.
yeah.
Um,
So you said the lowercase is in historic like Greek. What was that?
the uppercase. If you go to all the ancient things and you see things carved,
Chisel.
even the
Yes.
Roman ruins and the ancient Greek ruins, and things would be carved, they would all be like capital, like the ancient Greek
Yes.
capital letters, which are
Yes.
very angular and straight and everything.
Hmm.
But and the ancient Greek, but if you and the Latin. But when I'm using the modern day Greek lowercase letters, they're painterly and they're
Yes.
flowy
Yes.
and
They
they have
even do it in cursive,
curves.
you
and
know.
and so I can be in this, meditative flow state as I'm creating them. But also the thought process was, you have hope when you have health, and
Hmm.
with a little luck and a whole lot of love, you can achieve happiness and joy and peace. And so that is how this mantra, just the reflection on my own experiences. I didn't have hope until I tackled that really difficult health situation.
Hmm.
And then with a little bit of luck and a whole lot of love and support from my family to give me time and space to be able to do what spoke to my heart, I experienced finally what I experienced, my version of eudaimonia, right? Um,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's
so
giving
beautiful.
me the peace and the love and the joy. Um,
I love
to
that.
create a better life.
Yeah,
So
and those pieces too, like they resonate with so many people. You have collectors from, I'm sure now, like around the country that,
yeah,
are able to have like an original work of art in their home, which I think is so beautiful and so like beautiful in a sense that like your work is now living in the homes of other people. They can get those reminders every day, even if they aren't Greek, they know that they can feel the energy of the
they feel
work.
the energy.
Yes. And it's like when you learn about it too and the meanings, it just makes it so much more amazing. And I see on your mug you have the
Oh yeah, I've got some.
that's so cool. And I
So
love how
they
you created this like signature style using like these ancient letters, but like bringing this like modern philosophical twist. And again, it's not even like an ancient philosophy, but it's like you living it in your life and demonstrating it through your actions, through like your daily practice, through the things that you're doing. You're spreading joy, you're hosting these amazing workshops, facilitating these groups of women and people like from around your local area to come into the room to make art, giving people like the space, and the freedom and the permission, even like giving people permission to create, because that's, I think, the biggest blocker is people feel like they don't have the permission. So by using art for your own meditative practice to help yourself, you're now actually spreading it and helping others. And that is really what this philosophy of eudaimonia translates to. It's this human
exactly.
flourishing, and it's this virtuous life that exudes through you, and it is contagious to other people, and then it spreads like wildfire into the hearts of others. And I'm sure like people that come to your workshops, because I'm speaking now from my experiences, because I get people coming to my workshops, and it's like they leave feeling uplifted, like they leave feeling
Totally.
so
Totally.
inspired and
They
just
walk in and they're intimidated, and
yeah,
it's like we're here just to play. We're here
right,
to explore. There are no rules.
right, yeah,
There are no expectations.
yeah,
And then halfway through they loosen up, and that spark, oh my gosh, I'm really doing this. Look,
I
if I
know.
can at 52 years old, become a full-time artist, never having gone to art school,
That's so
and you can too. You can do
right.
whatever it is. It's just a matter of figuring out what lights your fire and how do you take small steps every day to design the life that you want to live.
And it's through the daily practice too,
Exactly.
and the discipline that it takes to create the life that you truly want, to make an impact, to influence people, to create peace within yourself, to be proud
Exactly.
of yourself. It does take discipline, and it does take passion. It does take that consistency and the trust in that daily habitual practice of like, no matter
Right.
how I'm feeling today, if I'm feeling low, if I'm feeling high, if I'm feeling in the middle, it's like you make the decision to wake up and to create. It's like,
Well, and it's what you invest your energy in. And I think, reflection is a really powerful thing. And so that's why we created this international retreat in Greece that we're getting ready to do our third one in June.
that's so
And and
exciting.
it's called The Art of Living Well.
I
And
love
so,
that.
we're gonna, we travel to Greece, and we take you to beautiful places, and we have this immersive experiences, and we've curated, and it's all to get you to enjoy all of your senses. Incredible food, incredible historical sites. We do creativity workshops with me in nature. We go hiking. We do olive oil tasting and wine tasting, all these things. But again, it's to
So beautiful.
indulge all of your senses,
Yes, yes.
and to rejuvenate your soul, and to give you time and space to figure out, what does the art of living well mean to me, and what are some things I need to leave behind, and what are some things that I need to be more intentional about,
Right,
right?
right,
You create space to be able to achieve this human flourishing, because it's going to be different for each person.
right. And
So
from my experience too, and for your future retreaters, going to Greece seriously opens your eyes so much.
Mm.
Going to Greece is like the like what your soul is craving, like through
Ah,
experiencing nature, the colors, feeling
the
the,
light. I don't know. You
seriously, like
can't explain it. The
the
light is
bodily
just
sensations that you experience in Greece, being surrounded by the ocean, your whole body's immersed, your feet are grounded. There's so much now science coming out too about like the positive, like psychological and physical benefits of just being outside. And
of
it's like
course.
in Greece, you are walking outside, you're feeling the air. It's just your body is experiencing nature in a different way. And then it opens your mind and it also clears your mind. And you do kind of have this detox while you're there to
Totally.
reflect and to really like dig inside of your own heart. Like I feel like Greece opens up your literal.
It totally does. Like I can think back to so many times. I mean, I spent
Yes.
a lot of summers as a child being sent there because my parents were entrepreneurs. So,
Oh,
we were either going to the Boys and Girls Club or my aunt and uncles would take us, for the summer. And
I would
as
choose
an
that. I would
adult,
choose going to Greece.
yeah, as an adult though, there were always these moments where, yeah, I just needed a reset.
Mhm.
And it always gave it to me. And so it's such a blessing and it's such a gift to, be able to now give other people these kinds of experiences, above and beyond my own practice.
I love that, Theodora.
Yeah,
And you
incredible.
honestly inspire me in so many ways too, because seriously, like I love Greece. I love painting in Greece. I love all my work is inspired by Greece. And it is my dream and goal in the future too to take a group to Greece with me. So I love that you're doing this, you're hosting and creating these spaces. And it's kind of like my ultimate lifetime goal to create these spaces and bring people along this journey with us, to Greece and to experience, this heart cracking, soulful like place that brings out so much beauty and wonder and creativity into your heart and it pours forth. And then watching it also play out into our daily lives here, because that's another part of the conversation in our show.
Right.
It's like having this experience of nature, experiencing this bliss, having these awakenings, but then also like having, that parallel life, even though it's so difficult. I'm gonna be honest, it's very difficult to live in that lifestyle here in America because
Totally.
our focus is so much on, working and productivity and the schedule and the structure. And,
The
it's
hustle, the hustle.
hustle culture, and it's just like the way that society is ran here, that, forces us to not spend time, reflecting inward and not, flourishing as individuals, but, working for some, arbitrary goal that is not fulfilling. And so, I feel like that. So the thing that I want to bring light to is how do we create this life of joy, of flourishing, of creativity, even while we are living here in America in this society, and how can we weave it into our day to day, even if we are working a job, even if we are a nurse or a teacher, like you can pull out like a little, notepad and you can doodle for 5 minutes
All you need is 5 minutes.
and that
5 minutes.
is like game changer. It like changes your mind, it changes your feelings, your inner state, your inner emotions, and even taking like being intentional to take a 5 minute walk outside and
Yeah.
move in nature and feel the sun on your face. And so finding little ways to weave in like these lifestyle habits that make us feel so alive in Greece and weaving them into our daily lives here. And
Absolutely.
like it's again that slow like daily practice, that slow progress that starts to snowball over time and it actually starts to create this beautiful life. And we see it demonstrated through you and through me. It's like it's just like it just snowballs until like you can't keep it in
Yeah,
anymore.
it multiplies.
It
It
multiplies.
multiplies. It
Yes.
gains traction in ways that the universe just keeps throwing opportunities and
Mhm.
connections to you. It's like it just
Yes.
magnifies.
And that's why I want to create this space for these conversations to happen so that other people can see like there is like an option, like there is this alternative, there is this, this way to create through writing and art and painting and different creative
Music,
outlets.
dancing,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And it's like
It doesn't matter what the art is,
right,
but it's
right.
just, yeah, it's whatever, that you're doing with your hands or with your body movement in a way that, connects with your soul,
Yes.
whatever that is for, and if somebody doesn't know what it is yet, then just try different things. Just try different things. I remember when I was
Yes,
going through
so true.
my
Like,
divorce years and years ago. I mean, I've been remarried now for 20 years, but all of a sudden I was like, I didn't have any family in Richmond. My kids were going to their dad's every other weekend. I would clean my house, do my laundry, whatever. And I had no hobbies because my hobbies were taking care of my children. And I had
mhm.
no idea what to do. And I ended up taking a flamenco dance class on
Ooh, that's
because
like
I was I majored in Spanish and international business in college, and then I did a semester abroad in Spain. And I was like, well, I saw something, flash in the somewhere an advertisement for, it, and I was like, I'm just going to do that. I have no idea.
love it.
I'm
That's
going to do that.
amazing.
But trying something that even scares you, just try different things until until something connects with you. Whether
Yes,
it's hiking or gardening or you know, yeah, I
seriously.
mean, a
Like, 'cause,
cooking class, whatever, baking
right.
sourdough bread.
Yeah, and it's like it's interesting too because like you might not know what it is, but it's
Yeah,
like you can't complain. This is the thing. I'm gonna be honest. Like this is what like racks my brain because people all the time will be like, I don't know what my thing is, and it's like, did you even try anything? Like, because a lot of the times people are just addicted to this. This is like the newest pandemic of our time is just like mindless scrolling and this like addiction. And it's like, you need to get off of your phone, step one. Step two is you need to try these things. You need to go to the grocery store and like buy the groceries. I know you're in a different generation than me. So this is me talking to like my peers that are like maybe in their
yeah,
like mid 20s,
yeah,
and like groundbreaking information to them to go to the grocery store because I've been married and I've been like living at my house and it's like I shop for groceries and I cook
sure,
and I enjoy the
sure,
process
yeah,
and it's like you just have to try it, you just have to
yeah.
experiment and like see what happens, and it's a fun process and then like trying different things, going rock climbing, that's
Exactly,
my friend
exactly.
my friend
Take
Zoe.
your dog to the dog park, meet other
Yeah, go
people,
for walks in the forest.
plan a game night, just,
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, it just takes one step.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe just say, okay, by the end of February, since we're in January, by the end of February, I'm going to try one new thing. Just going to try one new thing.
One thing a day, and then like doing it every day for 21 days to build a habit. But I heard too recently on a podcast that I was listening to that after day 19, most people give up because it becomes boring. So on day 19, even if you're trying to build this new habit, that's when people usually stop doing the new habit because it becomes boring. But I think you too can relate to this experience is like sometimes like the most beautiful creations happen out of boredom. So when you do become bored or when something does become redundant and like when I doodle when I first started creating art, I would redundantly create the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. It's not like I was reinventing the wheel. And you too, I mean, it clearly shows like you just kept redundantly putting the grammata down word, letter by letter, over and over. It's the same thing. It's boring, maybe for an outsider looking in, it's boring, it's redundant. but that's where the beauty comes from, because again, it's like that snowball effect. It gets faster, and the momentum grows. But I think the problem in our society is this thing with like instant gratification, and this like you just give up on yourself, and it's like you really have to push through the boredom and through the uncomfortable stages, and that's when you're going to click with what your true passion is eventually. So giving it time and space.
Time.
And
You have to give it time, and you have to, make space for it. You,
yes,
it's not going to just fall in your lap.
definitely. Oh my gosh. I love talking, Theodora. I think this conversation could go on forever and ever, but I'm gonna
It,
reel us
it,
back
it
in.
truly could. It
I
truly
know.
could.
We could talk about art all day, and maybe we will do a part two eventually in the future. I would love
Well,
that.
do you want to see one
Let's
of the large pieces I
Oh,
plan on
yeah. So I
showing?
was going to
Okay.
say, let's
Okay.
start thinking.
Okay.
We're going to be very open and transparent with you guys and show you our process behind the scenes of what it looks like for selecting 2 or 3 pieces of art for the exposition that's coming up in March 1st at Celestial Art Curation Gallery in Hinsdale, Illinois. And the gallery reception is going to be March 1st. And we're doing an artist panel discussion live at the gallery from 3 to 5 p.m. And so everyone is welcome to come. Theodora, are you flying in for this?
I am flying in, and I have family and very good friends in Chicago. So, you had me at Chicago.
I'm so
So
excited.
I'm really excited to come, and I have lots of clients and customers in the Chicago suburbs. So I'm super excited to get there. And also I have an artist crush on Depo. And I've bought her Evil Eyes and given them as gifts and everything. So I cannot wait to meet her in person as well.
Despina
So
is so cool. I did a
yeah.
show, I did the St. Alabos Greek Festival with her.
Okay, great.
So sweet. Like she's my
Yeah.
favorite, and I own a few of her pieces too. I love her to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
And she's
Okay, so let me show you one
yeah,
of
let's
the
see.
one
Let's
of
see
the
what you're
large
thinking about.
pieces.
Ooh.
You can help me pick which color you prefer.
Okay.
I don't have a good depth perception, so we'll see if I can.
Ooh, those are stunning. I
So
love
this
them.
is painted on an imported Himalayan latke paper. It feels like silk. And I use a very heavy textured gold paint. It's so sunny, it's kind of hard to see with the glare. But I love how this custom frame kind of mimics the rhythmic nature of the letters.
I love
So the Elpida, Iya, Tihia, Gapi, Tihia, Hara, and Irini.
Mhm.
And it's just a really beautiful impact piece. So this one is kind of a bluish kind of
Feel
like a slate blue kind of gray
beautiful.
blue. And then I have this other
Those
kind
are
of.
meant to be shown together. Is that correct? Are they the same blue?
Not necessarily, not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily.
So
Okay.
this one kind of has like a silvery green blue color. Can you pick up on that?
Oh, kind
Yeah,
of.
and I like totally fall in love with like a specific letter. I'll have to tell you, because all these like accidental blobs and the way the paint sometimes drags on the paper. So
Mhm.
I think I'm a little partial to this one because the letters are a little bit smaller. So it's a little bit tighter. So from far away, it's like, wait, what is that pattern? What is that? It kind of draws you in. And
Yes,
then
yes.
get closer and closer, then you kind of realize what it is, and then you get really lost in the detail of each brushstroke. So
Yeah,
we
that
have
is
the
and
kind of
personally,
really blue color.
yeah, and I love it when a work of art has like a composition from far away, but then when you come closer, you see those fine details.
Right.
Love, love that. That's beautiful.
So that is definitely one out of the two that I can ship to you.
Okay.
Um,
What else were you thinking?
um,
Of both of them. And honestly,
oh,
I could
I also have a black one. Do you want to see the black one?
yes.
The black is really, really something. Okay.
Oh, and I do, here's the thing. I love like
Walking
creating a
backwards.
wall like of art, and like I make a lot of black and white art, and so I can totally see like your black and white next to like on a gallery wall kind of situation.
Yeah.
Your
Can you see this one
Ooh,
with the black? The gold just pops on the black.
that's really nice.
And then I also have, I don't know if you're interested, but these are ceramic wall vases
I like,
that
I love those. I think they're
so
really,
I made those by hand, and
Mhm.
then I carved them using it's called sgraffito.
Yes, yes.
And what I'm obsessed, okay, if you look at my camera roll when I go to Greece, there will be thousands of pictures of pebbles and rocks and all the formation in the ground. And then I will also take a gazillion pictures of the doors, like the doors in Athens, the doors in the villages. And
Yes,
so the
yes.
designs on those vases are
Uh-huh.
actually taken from photographs of
Yeah.
doors in Greece.
Really,
The beautiful ornate ironwork, I hand carved those into those. So that could be kind of fun, especially since it'll be spring
yeah,
and
and I was gonna say
flowers in them.
like the one gold framed piece, and then like, do they are they stacked? Like, can you do like a few? Like, how are they?
I
Can you
have
see them?
two,
How they
I
fit
have
on the
two large,
wall?
I have two large vases and then two smaller vases. So I can send you a picture of them
Can
and
I just
measure
like
them.
flipping your camera again so we can just
Oh,
see them
okay.
one more time? Yeah, I just want to see how you have. Oh yeah, like how they're kind of staggered like that
Yeah.
on the
So
wall.
I did that for the holidays. So they're kind of I forget the name of the plant I put in it. Oh, I have pussy willows in there, and then I have eucalyptus.
Ooh,
But like for the spring to get like tulips or narcissus with a bright color could be really fun.
I love that. I love that whole wall over there, and I think for the show, this is like my idea.
Yeah.
But I think like having one of those giant gramata paintings next to like two staggered vases
Mm.
on the wall, like kind of show next to each other, kind of like you have in your studio.
Hmm.
I think that would be a really cool depiction of like your work, and like showing something completely new that like you've never
Right.
shown
Right.
before. And kind of like debuting it for the show, but it also too weaves in with the theme of the show, because those those wall hangings, they're a historical, like they're bringing back like antiquity, like Greek like signature vessels,
Yes.
which I think is so beautiful, like weaving in that rich history. But then also like with the doors, it's kind of like this portal. It creates like doors are portals, and so it's like you're stepping
Exactly.
into this like new space in this new era. And it's kind of like, what we're encouraging our listeners and our followers to attempt in their own life is to create this, to step into this new, new world for themselves, a new habit, a new activity, a new hobby,
Right.
like taking
Right.
a risk, like walking through the door, and like to create spiritual freedom, to create, joy. It's like you have to decide to walk through.
That's right.
You have to be the one to walk through the door. And so I think too, if you like kind of weave that into like the writing and your like the small
Yeah.
description that's like on
Right.
the keys, and like talk about the seven wishes and like the door and the vessel, I really think that's going to be a really amazing.
And like we're the vessel, right? So
Yeah,
what are we pouring into our vessel and how are we blossoming? And you know what could be really fun too, Christina, is if we select, a certain kind of flower to go in the vases, and maybe it can be like I don't know, like as you talk with other artists and you start seeing like a color story coming together, then we could select the flowers that kind of have that cohesion with the colors of the other pieces in the show.
that
And then I
idea.
could make a blooming girl so that whatever flowers that are in the vessels are also this abstract blooming girl that
Mm,
ties into it.
I would love that.
So we could do that as well.
I would love that idea, because in the back of my heart, personally, I love your gramata paintings, but I kind of secretly and selfishly wanted a blooming girl to come to the show too. So I think
Good.
that's a really amazing creative way for us to weave it in and for it to make sense, and to,
Yeah.
with our
Okay.
stories. So I love that idea.
Do you want to see a sneak peek of a new, I decided, and I'm launching on February 4th, a new expansion of the Blooming Girls, and
Ooh.
it's called Birthday Blooms, but
Ooh.
I'm not doing a certain flower per month. Like I'm not, we're not, I'm looking at the virtues and the symbolism of certain flowers, and
Ooh.
I'm doing it seasonally.
I love
So the first season is winter because it's the notion of blooming in every season of life.
that.
And so the first new flower that I picked out to represent winter because of its resilience and it's hopeful and it
Cardigan.
perseveres. It's the snowdrop, and I'll show you a sneak preview. I haven't framed them. They're going to go into acrylic shadow boxes, but I have a few that I can show you.
This is so exciting. We get a very exclusive sneak preview of Theodora's newest collection. I'm so excited.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to hold something behind it because of the way anyway, so this is a snowdrop. They grow in the snow. They're one of the first flowers that pop up. And anyway, so this is on unbleached canvas, and I paint the outlines
Mhm.
of it, and just kind of a very quick a painterly brush strokes. And then I go back and I add all these little pieces of paint chips that I peeled off of my palette paper. And I'll
Mhm.
show you what those look like. Let me grab one.
Wow, that is so stunning. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. I think it's so pretty.
So when I paint, I'm mixing my paint on these palette papers, and then they dry and I can never throw them away. And
Right.
again, it's the notion of being like a child and playing.
Well,
And so
Theodora, I'm in my studio right now, and you've actually kind of inspired me to do something with this crazy
yes,
fountain.
totally. So I peel off these little pieces and then I look at them and I'm like, oh my God, that looks like what this needs to live. This, I love the way this looks. And
Oh,
anyway, I just layer them on, and all of a sudden you end up with like this exquisite,
beautiful. And it creates
texture and the mixture
identity.
of colors. And I'll show you this one too.
Definitely love. I'm obsessed. I am obsessed. I love them.
And then I end up finding these little pieces of gold and I just like stick them on there, these little teeny tiny freckles. And then
This
is
is
it wrong to love like a little nano piece of paint?
no,
But
I
anyway.
love it. I think that they're stunning. And in the added layer of like meaning that the flower, like what it symbolizes, I think truly like adds that extra like, depth that our souls want and like what we're craving. It's just like another sign of hope. And, it's that visual reminder when it's on our walls at our house or in our office space or in our kitchen. It's like, even like if you're having a sad day or like you're kind of not feeling it, we all go through it, but it's like when you see it on your wall, it makes you smile. It brings you a sense of peace, a sense of hope. And it's like those little micro moments that create our life. And so through living with
And
art,
it's like subconsciously
yes,
there and it just
yes,
keeps,
just in the
yeah,
background,
keeps wiring in there.
and it's
Yeah,
like that daily, like just it sinks in to your subconscious and
totally,
time
totally.
it enhances your daily life. It enhances, your space. It brings joy to you, to anyone who enters in your home. It radiates the energy of the what you intended it to. And I love that about it. It's
Well,
beautiful.
so let's definitely talk as you do your other interviews and everything
Yes,
and
yes,
see
yes.
how things are shaping up, make some recommendations on some colors.
Yes, yes.
And then I
I know a
can,
lot. I know I have another Theodora. Her name's Theodora Pavlou. She's around my age and she's a painter. She shows her work in galleries like all around Greece and she's super cool. I'm obsessed with her.
awesome.
And we actually were in Greece last summer together and we got to paint together on the beach. So it was just, it's really nice to have a friend that loves painting as much as you do. So
Yeah.
anyways, that Theodora is creating this beautiful like Grecian landscape, like sunset. And so I know she's working with a lot of like deep like oranges. And so
Oh,
it's like a
okay.
deep orange sunset with then like the rocky kind of muted blues in the rock and in the seascape,
Okay.
like this contrast between like orange and blue, and it's like this beautiful visceral land like sunset that we experience,
Yeah.
which I love. It's a little bold for someone's house. I don't know if people like typically like have these like beautiful. I think they do though. That's not true. It depends. You have to have good taste to have a piece like this in your.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's like this. It's like a photograph, but taking you, transporting you into this sunset. Um,
Right.
colors are just extraordinary. And another artist, Zoe, she's from Florida and she's flying in for the show, so you'll get to meet her.
Great.
And she's also using a lot of oranges in her piece as well.
Okay. Okay.
Sunset burnt oranges, maybe like some reds, and maybe even like some like oceanic blues, even because there's going to be a lot of blues in the show too. Because
Okay.
the front room where the gallery is gonna where we're gonna have the exhibition, the front room is going to be my solo show, so it's going to be a lot of blues, like heavy blue,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and black and whites, and a few other colors, but like heavy blue. And then when we
Okay.
walk into the other room of our group show, it's going to be, these poppy colors, more orangey tones. Um,
I am
there'll
kind
be
of
some black
obsessed
and
right
white.
now
There
of
will be
hot
some.
pink with orange. I love that combination so much right now. Uh,
Yeah,
so I
that's
might
pretty cool.
do that where maybe it's mostly pink, but then it has these pieces of orange and golden colors mixed
Yeah,
in that kind of tie, like kind of like when you look at a sunset at a certain point in time, it almost has this pinky orangey mix
yeah,
that's
yeah,
really
yeah. That
interesting.
glow. I
Mhm.
would love to see you play around in that palette. I think that's going to be really cool.
The
Um,
other the other thing that I haven't done in a while, but I'm itching to get back to is that I do another version of Seven Wishes that is very collage. So I end up painting very abstract all in the background, and then I layer on antique book pages of Greek text.
yes,
And then I paint with white and gesso, acrylic and gesso on top. And so it ends up being extremely
sure.
textural. And
Mhm.
then you have these little colors that peek out from underneath it. And you have little words and that antique book pages where they're kind of like when they age and they turn like into these
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
colors, like the sand, like you were talking about the beach and everything. And so and then I do the Seven Wishes on top, but because it's so textural, it's the paint isn't real, the paint kind of falls into these crevices. And
Yeah.
so it has this kind of motion to it that might be really interesting to
Mhm.
have. I think I'd like to maybe try that if you're game too.
I would love to see it. I recently saw too when you were doing the interview with the woman who has the dental practice.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wasn't that one like pages
So
layered?
those were book pages, but they had a
Okay,
metallic
fine.
sheen to them.
Okay.
So I'll send you a picture of
I trust you, Theodora. I want to see this creative juice like explode and come out and whatever it needs to be. I think
okay.
that'd be really, really cool. The way that you described it, I would love to like just the words you use to describe that.
Well,
I'm
it
sure
just
it's
it
gonna
it
be
comes out in different forms, and for me,
right.
that was kind of more of a heritage approach because it's like we have something literally from vintage book
Generational.
pages,
Hmm.
um, and then we're laying it on, so it's kind of this, not tug of war, but this push and pull between,
Yes.
our history and our future,
Hmm.
and
I
how
love
how they inform each other and create
that.
something beautiful when you kind of allow them to mix together.
I love that. And I think too, it really kind of hits home at like the core of like what I really want to, the message that I really want to get across in this show is like our deep like roots as Greek women. It's like it goes so much deeper than just us and like our physical bodies, but it's like we are our ancestors and generations before us that are now being able to express, what so many women from our history have felt and being able to show this work, I think it's just such a blessing that we
And keep it alive, right?
yeah,
Keep it
keep our
alive
right.
through modern interpretations
Mhm.
and to kind of spread those universal virtues
Yes.
that that are in the Hellenic DNA, you know?
Yes. And that's the thing too. It's like, and I've talked to a few other Greek women, like Diane Alexander, she said once to me, like, she's like, it's just because like that Greek in you, like, is that creativity, that light, that like that spirit, it like shines through.
Kefi,
And
it's
I
the
was like,
Kefi.
yeah. And I was like,
Get your Kefi on.
right. I was like, I never like realized it, but it's like she saw it within me, and I was like, you're so right. Like it's just like this energetic, generational thing that we feel inside of us that lives within us. And I think showing that through the layers and the painting, it's just like I love your gramata painting, even on the plain pieces of paper, but I think having that background really adds that layer of character and depth, and like the colors peeking through it just
Yeah, yeah,
creates a
yeah.
different viewing experience, and I think that's a beautiful piece that someone would love to collect in their home.
So if the Golden Seven Wishes is the largest piece, well, it doesn't have to be. I mean, if you want me to go bigger, I could. Do you want that to be the larger piece and more of a medium size?
So
So
I
give some thought to
the size. So I think so the space, I know everyone I'm like, this is my first time curating, and I just want all my artists that are participating to feel the freedom to create whatever they feel called to. And that's really
okay.
important to me, as a curator of the show. Like, I don't want to restrict any of you to,
Okay.
to fit in a box, and I have a strong, you know, like positivity that it's all gonna fit, it's all gonna work out. The space is a little small, but there are a lot of big walls and there is like
Sure.
hallways, and so we're gonna puzzle it
You'll
together.
be able to like create vignettes and
Yeah,
groupings that speak to one another.
exactly. So that's kind of like the plan. Like even if a few pieces need to, be on, different walls, maybe like the orchid or the flower painting is not next to the vessels with the larger
Yeah.
piece, like maybe
They'll
it's
still speak to each other. You know, they'll bounce off of each other in the room.
exactly. And so I think like when we curate, it'll be like this creative, experience where it all just kind of like works out. So
Yes.
that's kind of the forefront that I'm approaching it with. Like I don't
Okay.
want to be, restrictive. Um,
Okay.
and
Well,
I
then I'll just kind of go with my gut and my intuition and
yes, and I trust you guys as the artists to flow with your intuition. If I was participating in a show and someone said it has to be small, like I love working big. And so it's like,
yeah,
that's just me, but some artists love working small. And if I
right.
told them you need to make a giant painting, that just wouldn't make sense. So every artist has their strengths, and I want you to play to your strengths, and we'll make room for it. And at the end of the day, like we're gonna make it work. But yeah, so do you think so just to go over everything, so one flower painting for sure.
Yeah, one blooming girl for sure, or possibly like a pair of small ones.
Okay,
So I'm thinking like 8 by 10 or 11 by. So this is an 8 by 10.
great size. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a
And
great.
when they're put in the acrylic,
Yes,
it's a 3 inch deep, so it has more presence.
those are
So
nice.
either like an 8 by 10 or like an 11 by 14. So
Yeah.
maybe one or two of those. I usually paint them in multiples because I kind of jump back
Yeah.
and forth. So
Okay.
I'll
And
make
like,
a couple and then let you pick or,
yeah,
show
and
you what.
even I was gonna say like maybe you even I don't know what shipping, but like maybe you even bring both and then like we can decide as we're piecing
Yeah,
together. Like
yeah,
maybe, we only have room for one, or maybe we do have room for both, and we can
yeah.
just see like how it plays out. So that's great. Love. And then the second two pieces, we're gonna do two of the vases with the doors on
Two
them.
of the vases with the
Just like
door.
one large
Mhm.
and one small, right? They're kind of different sizes,
Um,
or are they similar sizes?
so there's two small and two large. So it just depends if you want to do two little ones or a little one and a big one or the two that match or
I think one big and one small would
okay,
be,
let's do
because
it.
it's like,
Okay. And
yeah,
actually, like there's two that kind of really go together too, like the that speak to one another. So all right, so
okay.
we're gonna do
But I mean, you choose if you made them to be shown like the same size. Did you make them to be shown like two smalls together or two bigs together?
I don't think that far in advance when I'm creating them.
Okay. I
Yeah,
kind of liked how you had them on the wall. Like,
yeah, the kind of juxtaposition of them.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
like kind of like
yeah,
an asymmetrical balance moment, which is kind of nice.
yeah,
And I feel like that could go so beautifully in like a kitchen. I can literally see them in
yeah,
like
totally.
kitchen or like, a living room or a dining room. I think that's beautiful. Okay, wonderful. So we have the flower, the two vases, and then for the larger piece, were you thinking to do one of the works on paper in the gold frame in addition to the other one or the other? Like,
The large ones that we started with. I was thinking one of those.
okay,
Um,
nice.
I could potentially do a smaller one, but I just think, I
I
don't know,
like
we'll
I
see.
like the size and the statement of the larger
I
one.
think it's a great statement piece.
Mhm.
A lot of people will have these like in their bedrooms or if they have a large foyer,
Yes.
or dining room. So I think it's a nice accent piece. Um,
And I
it's a
will, like,
bold
I am
piece.
actually going to, I will measure the walls just to make sure,
Yeah,
like with all of our other artists, like as we creep in, and like
right.
let's say, like at the very, before you end up shipping it, we'll talk again, and I will I'll just confirm everything, and if I want there to be space for that, but then you're also going to make the other bigger one too.
Well, I can do that one any size, right?
Oh,
So
okay. Well, okay. I think it'll work. I think it'll all work. I think it'll all fit. Um, I just was like, okay, two giant pieces.
yeah,
Um,
no, it won't be giant. Maybe I'll do like an 18 by 24 or a 24 by,
because I'm visualizing even, I'm thinking, we'll think. Because I was like, I kind of envisioning a vignette with like the golden frame with the two vases, like for you in one section of the show, and then maybe
Mhm.
like the flower kind of woven in a vignette
Into somewhere else. Yeah.
with other artists, and then maybe like the more textural gramata painting could be, if it is smaller, it could be woven in a separate, with it kind of could puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Okay. Well, I think we have a good start and, I'm always low on inventory. So I'll just make some stuff and what doesn't fit, it's okay. Cause,
Right. I
I
was
can
gonna
send
say
it to
that
another, I
that's
can
a
send it
great.
to some of my other
Well,
gallery
I
partners.
was gonna say, Theodora, too, like please, like if you're capable and able, like bring like what we talked about, but bring stuff, and then like we'll see how it happens,
Yeah. Yeah.
how it plays out. Do you know what day you're flying in?
I haven't bought my ticket yet,
Okay, because we're
but
setting everything on the 28th of February. If you end up coming in, if you're able to come.
oh, I see.
March 1st is that next day, so we're gonna hang everything on the 28th.
Oh, well, I mean, I'll still have to ship you some stuff, but I see what you mean. Yeah, I definitely want to be there more than the day. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So if I flew in like on the 27th and I could, you know, bring the smaller pieces with me.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just that way you could save on shipping. A few of my other artists are also doing that.
Okay.
So that's just an option too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I have a free place to stay at my favorite cousin, so all
Amazing.
good.
Yay. I know. I'm actually hosting Zoe, our artist from Florida. I'm having her stay
Great.
at my house with me.
Wonderful.
So we're gonna have a fun weekend, and hopefully too we'll be able to get dinner together the night of the
Okay,
show.
so I'm just gonna throw it out there, throw it out into the universe, but since I'll be staying through the weekend, we could always pull off a Blooming Girls workshop while I'm there.
Should we? Let's do
Why
it.
don't you
Let's
want
do
to?
it. Let's do it.
It's really fun. It's
Let's
really
let's do it at Celestial at the gallery. Let's do it at the gallery. I will talk to the gallery owner. She's always game for workshops, you know.
Yeah. So we could do
We'll
like a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon.
So the show, so you're thinking like
Is it the show on a Friday?
the show is Saturday, March
Oh, the
1st.
show is Saturday.
Yeah, the show is Saturday, but if you plan on staying, you know, we could do a
We could
Sunday.
do a Sunday afternoon.
We could do
Yeah,
that.
we
And
could
then
do a Sunday afternoon.
invite a bunch of people and we can have it, you know, like around like one or two, you know, in the afternoon, and that'd be really nice. That'd be really fun.
So think about it.
Okay, well, I will just run it by the gallery owner, make sure it's okay with her. She's super like into stuff like this, and I'm into it. So
Okay.
if you're into it, let's put it together
Let's do
a
it.
flyer and let's promote it, and let's, you know, make a ticket link, and let's invite people into the space. I would love, you know, to be a participant, to attend one of your workshops. You know, I love hosting workshops. I love participating in them. It's like such a fun experience. And anyone listening to our conversation after today, they're going to be like, we need to go to this workshop to experience art for ourselves. So I love the idea. That is so many good things happening. So many good things happening. And now you're just going to have to come back to Chicago too.
I love Chicago. I love
Show.
Chicago. Yeah.
And hopefully we can network and make more connections and, you know, get you in some more places so your presence can physically be, you know, here permanently too. You know,
Sounds great.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, Theodora. Well, I don't want to take any more of your time.
Thanks so much.
We were pretty naughty with this interview.
That's okay. We had a great time. We had a great time.
I know.
Put me in the best mood.
Yes. Thank you so much for
So I'm business on top for Zoom, but I've got my painting pants on.
I love it.
Now I'm gonna change out and throw on my painting sweatshirt and get to work. So
I'm gonna rip this off too. It's so hot. The sun's like beaming on me. And I secretly have my Pilates outfit still on from this morning. So I'm ready to, you know, change out.
Well, thank you for your beautiful energy and for being so gracious with your time. But I'm super psyched. I'm glad we got to talk about some ideas and brainstorm.
Yes, me too. I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
Okay, sounds good.
Everything.
Bye.
Bye.
Talk soon.